Hello and welcome to the Azure Stack HCI Show. Hello, Manfred. How are you doing today?
Hello, Sven. I'm fine, and I'm looking forward to our topic today.
Yeah, I guess you are as excited as I am about all the announcement that happened yesterday about general availability of Windows Azure Stack HCI version 23H2 and especially Azure Virtual Desktop on Azure Stack HCI. And we will go through all the announcements today and bring a little bit of more details so everyone is up to date. Maybe you have seen the communication on LinkedIn yesterday, a lot of blogs and comments. And there has been some confusion in the communication because there was no official pricing about Azure Virtual Desktop in the blog. But there was a link to the website where you can find pricing. And on that website, the site says that there's no cost, so $0 for AVD on Azure Stack HCI. And we said, yes, that's a very good pricing, of course. So everyone will buy this if it's for free. But then we have been told that this is a mistake and it's not zero. It will be a different pricing, but we will communicate it maybe end of March because the first 2 months will be for free. As Azure Stack HCI is for free for the first 60 days as well. And then I said, this does not make any sense because if I want to buy the solution, if I want to test it, if I want to purchase hardware, if I want to deploy, I need to know the pricing. Otherwise, I invest a lot of time. And then I say, okay, that's too expensive for me. And the good news is we got finally the pricing. And now in the session, we talk about the announcements, the pricing for AVD. And if you have any questions or comments, so please let us know. Type them in the chats, in the comments, and then we will include it into this session. So, okay, Manfred, let's go through the announcements.
Yeah. Should we use your screen for the announcements or
I
mine?
can use my screen, of course. So maybe I make it a little bit bigger. So here we are. And maybe I use this visual. Oh, no, that's the better one. Okay, so you had the session with MVP Eric Berg this morning in German language, and you already explained what the announcement is about. So you are already the expert about that. So I would say you should start and tell us what exactly has been announced and what this means for us. Especially at the end of Cosmos Darwin's announcement, there are some looking forward notes and some very interesting details. And let's focus a little bit on that, because in the last versions of or sessions of the Azure Stack HCI show, we already did some demos about how to deploy, what will come. So there are not a lot of news what Azure Stack HCI 23H2 looks like. But now we have some more clarity about what this current version is supporting and what will come a little bit later. So let's spend some time here.
About the features we already talked in previous shows, and these features were released yesterday. So everything we talked about 23H2, what's new in there, is general available since yesterday. And the important note in the blog is it's in the first part of the first part here, that the preview statement is removed in the Azure portal. And if you still see Azure Stack HCI 23H2 preview there, then you should try to refresh your Azure portal, reload it completely, because this was removed. So everything around Azure Stack HCI 23H2 that is available in the Azure portal is general available since yesterday US time. So German time was 6 p.m., Redmond time 9 a.m. in the morning when this announcement was made. If you are working from the technical perspective with Azure Stack HCI, then it's important to know that the installation file you download from the Azure portal is still an older version. So please do not wonder about this. You don't read anything about preview, then you click on download. And if you look in detail at the file, you will see, oh, this is a version from last year. Here, the situation is that the downloaded OS is updated via the deployment. So this is not a mistake. This is nothing wrong linked in the Azure portal. This is as expected. And if you click on the download and you receive a newer version, then this was updated. But it's the situation that we will not see a new ISO download file with every new Azure Stack HCI version because it's updated in the deployment process.
Yeah, now the latest version is general available. And what does this mean, general available? So we had a preview for a long time, and of course you can test it, you can use it whenever a product is in preview. It's for free, so you do not have to pay for that. When it gets general available, you have to pay for that. If you are in a preview version, of course, you do not have. If you use the general available version, the official version, then you have to pay. Because the official version, the general available version, is ready for production. This means if you use it and you have an issue, you get support from Microsoft. If you use a preview, well, you get some support, but of course not the same support because it's not meant for usage in a productive environment. And now you can use the latest version in your productive environment, and we invite you to use it and to do that.
Absolutely. Maybe at this point, it would be a good situation to talk about the capabilities and limitations you mentioned that we find at the end of this blog article. Because what's important, if you are already using Azure Stack HCI 22H2, then today we don't have a direct upgrade path. So everybody who is using 2020H2 can read the information in the article that you should stay on 2020 H2 version because the in-place upgrade process will be announced later this year. So if you want to have 23H2 today, you have to start with a new deployment. This does not mean that you have to redeploy your complete workload because there are mechanisms where you reinstall the nodes and you import your existing workload. So this is possible. If you plan a migration via this way, there are solutions for it. But important is to understand in the past Azure Stack HCI versions, the upgrade was always an in-place upgrade. So you had 21H2 version, 2220 H2 was published, and you had an integrated upgrade process within the Azure Stack HCI version. And now in 23H2, we have the situation that the upgrade is done via the Azure portal. And this works perfectly when you are already on the 23H2 track. But when you switch from the old Azure Stack HCI world, 2020H2, into the new world, today you have to reinstall. And as the blog post from Cosmos Darwin says, later this year, we will get information how the in-place upgrade will work, and an in-place upgrade will be offered. This is important. So the situation today does not mean that an in-place upgrade will never be possible. For sure, I expect that there will be some specific technical requirements because 2020 H2 did not have the Azure Arc Resource Bridge in a supported version. In 23 H2, it's deployed via the deployment. So somehow we have to get the resource bridge. Then we have the situation that in 2020 H2, network ATC was an optional feature. Now it's mandatory. In 2020 H2, TPM, a trusted platform module, was optional. Now it's mandatory. So we have many new requirements, and we have to wait for the official announcement how this works within an upgrade scenario. Yeah.
Yeah, and in the blog you can read that there's no end date for the 22H2 version at the moment. So you can
Yeah.
use both versions. And this is super important for another topic. And I will scroll up here, the stretch clustering, because stretch clustering at the moment is not supported on 23H2. So if you are using stretch cluster, or if you want to use stretch cluster in near future, you have to deploy 22H2. And in the middle of this calendar year, there will be an update on that situation when stretch clustering will come to 23H2 as well, or maybe it's coming to 24H2. So we do not know at the moment. But for the meantime, if you want to use stretch cluster or you use it at the moment and you want to continue using it, then please stay on 22H2 for the meantime.
I think an important thing at this point is to clarify what a stretch cluster is, because I know many customers that install Azure Stack HCI in an Azure Stack HCI cluster, and they put the nodes in different rooms. Per definition, this is not a stretch cluster. It's a deep discussion if this scenario is supported or not, but per definition, this is not a stretch cluster. A stretch cluster requires minimum 4 nodes. These 4 nodes are in 2 different sites, and these 4 nodes, minimum 4 nodes, this can also be more nodes, they run in a single Azure Stack HCI cluster, but this cluster uses storage replica between the sites. So if you have these nodes in different rooms, it uses storage replica between the rooms. So if you have a stretch scenario where storage replica is used, then you have the situation that this is not supported in 23H2 today. If you are using a cluster where you put the nodes in different rooms, then maybe it was not supported in the past how you did it, but it worked. And we have the situation that this is still possible in Azure Stack HCI 23H2, but nothing has changed regarding the support statement. So this official stretched cluster, that is per definition, this configuration between storage spaces direct and storage replica is not available in version 23H2 today. And this is the reason why it's so important what Sven mentioned, that the version 2020H2 is still supported, because in the past we had the situation when a new Azure Stack HCI version was published, we had 6 months where we had to upgrade to this latest version. And now we have the support statement that says both versions 2020H2 and 23H2 are supported as long as all these things are solved and clear. Yeah.
I heard a lot of rumors that Microsoft is not continuing the concept of stretch cluster, and this is not true. So we announced that stretch cluster will come to Windows Server, Storage Spaces Direct at Ignite. We announced that stretch cluster will come to 23H2 maybe in summer, latest in the version 24H2. So are there any technical reasons, Manfred, why we are not supporting stretch cluster in the current version?
So stretch clustering is a very complex topic overall. So I think there is and this is the reason why I spent some additional minutes to explain what stretch clustering means, because I think there's a big misunderstanding between what many customers need and what Microsoft provides. Microsoft provides us a stretch cluster that is capable to synchronize or replicate traffic with distances of several hundred kilometers. A traditional stretch cluster in Germany has a few meters between different rooms, and this is a completely different scenario. The interesting thing about the stretch cluster scenario for Azure Stack HCI, how it exists today, is that the storage replica technology has some limitations. and they were responsible for some problems that were in the past with stretch cluster configurations. And this is the reason why Microsoft changed the stretch cluster concept, and this is already announced for the next version of Windows Server. And I'm pretty sure, I don't have information about this, but I'm pretty sure that this new concept of stretch clustering will also be the way how it's solved in Azure Stack HCI, but not today, but somewhere in the future, maybe in an update for 23H2 or in the next Azure Stack HCI version. So the technology we are using today in 2020 H2, for example, did not support RDMA network connectivity between the sites. And this means that we have huge latencies there, that we have huge impact on CPUs and bandwidth limitations. And this will change in the next version.
Okay, perfect. So we can find a note about System Center support. So
yeah,
it has been announced that System Center is not able to manage VMs on Azure Stack HCI
yeah.
any longer. So do you have any information about that?
Yeah. So we already have seen in one of our last shows the virtual machine management in Azure Stack HCI 23H2, and we have seen this is done via the Azure portal.
Mm-hmm.
And the Azure portal uses the Azure Resource Manager. So when I click anything on the Azure portal, it builds a template that is deployed via the Azure Resource Manager. This is a great technology. I like this very much because it's the same way to deploy a virtual machine in Azure, then I can deploy it on Azure Stack HCI. It's the same way how I deploy Azure Virtual Desktop in Azure. It's the same way on Azure Stack HCI and so on. It's really cool. But this also means that you don't have the capability to do the same things via PowerShell because it's a different logic. If you go to your local machine and you configure something via PowerShell, you will have different attributes, different requirements compared to the Azure situation. Concrete thing is, for example, the network configuration. In Azure, there's a layer between the physical hardware and the virtual machine. It's called the logical switch. We don't have the logical switch in Hyper-V. Hyper-V has network interface cards and they have virtual switches. The virtual switches are connected to virtual machines. In Azure, we have the logical networks between. So the virtual machine is connected to the logical network, and the logical network is associated to a virtual switch. And this is the reason if you configure things on premises via Hyper-V Manager, Failover Cluster Manager, or PowerShell, you could break the Azure logic. So if you know what you do, it's no problem. You can still use these older tools. But if you don't care about this architecture of Azure, you can break the configuration. This means your virtual machine will still start and will still run, but you will not be able to use the benefits from the Azure portal any longer. And this is the reason why the System Center, how it's designed, will not be able to work with Azure Stack HCI 23H2 like every other tool that uses PowerShell directly. And my answer is usually if somebody asks, will my tool X be compatible with Azure Stack HCI 23H2? If this tool is capable to use Azure Resource Manager, then for sure, if this tool uses PowerShell, we should really look carefully on this tool, what it does, because it might run into issues. And the interesting thing is that the announcement of System Center says here in this blog post from Cosmos Darwin, yes, today System Center does not support the management for Azure Stack HCI 23H2. And I assume, I didn't test this, but I assume the installation will block it. So because System Center needs an agent on the nodes, I assume that the installer will say, sorry, I'm not compatible with this version. But as I read the blog post, it says that Microsoft is looking on this requirement to have a compatibility to System Center Virtual Machine Manager in the future.
Yep, exactly. So I can see System Center will add support for Azure Stack HCI version. So maybe there will be an extension that is using the Azure Resource Manager. We will know, but they will have a separate blog post for that. And
Yep.
if you follow the Azure Stack HCI Tech Talk LinkedIn group, we will keep you updated. Whenever there are some news, we will post it in LinkedIn. So what else is here? We can find regional availability. Okay, this is
Yep.
limitation. It's not available all across the world, but it's available in Europe West and East US. So for our European friends, of course, it's available.
Yeah, this is important regarding the Azure Stack HCI registration. This is, let's say, for the metadata. As you know, I have to register my cluster at Azure. The deployment is done via the Azure portal. Your workload itself, for example, Azure Virtual Desktop, is not bound to this specific region because when you ever worked with Azure, you know that you can specify the region for every workload, but requirement is that your selected workload is available in the specific region. And for us in Europe, we will choose the region West Europe for Azure Stack HCI deployment, and we could deploy workloads on Azure Stack HCI that is in a different region. So the workload runs in my own data center. So this region is only for the meta information for it. Yeah.
Yeah, but you will not find it in any other region. So if you're looking for
Today,
that,
yeah.
you will not find it. So that's important news. So what else has been announced? Azure Arc overview. So Azure Arc is not new in Azure Stack HCI. It's mandatory since 22 H2, I guess. But something new happened with Azure Arc and the Arc Resource Bridge. It's
Yeah, we have
more integrated.
yeah, we have a consolidated view. The idea of this whole Azure management, and we already talked about this in several Azure Stack HCI shows before, is to be able to work at scale, to have many departments where we have an Azure Stack HCI cluster and we manage them centrally. And in the integration in the Azure portal, now we have more dashboards that summarize the health of the clusters, the performance of the clusters, and then we can drill into the specific values and see details about the specific cluster. And this consolidation and summarizing is new in the portal.
Yeah, and there's a preview for Windows Defender for Cloud.
Yep.
Azure Stack HCI. So for the guest OS, it is available right now, but for the host operating system, so Azure Stack HCI, it's in a preview. And we already talked about the additional integration of security features in Azure Stack HCI with the new version. Of course, Microsoft Defender for Cloud is an important part for that. And it's in preview at the moment, so you can use it. It's without any cost. Is there any risk to use it when it's a preview in a productive environment?
Microsoft says never use preview in production. I wouldn't see a risk here because it's not a preview of the product itself. It's a preview of the way how it's managed and implemented. And the great thing here is that it closes the security story around Azure Stack HCI because the deployment already has a huge focus on a secure configuration. This is also the reason why a trusted platform module version 2 is now mandatory. So via the deployment of Azure Stack HCI, more than 350 security policies are applied to the nodes. And now we have in preview also the full security focus via the Defender integration. So for me, it's a great thing. I wouldn't see any problems in a production environment, but the official statement is don't use it in production via this way as long as it's in preview. Yeah.
Okay, then we have Azure Migrate.
Yeah.
This is something I got a lot of questions about. Is there any tool from Microsoft to migrate Hyper-V and VMware VMs to Azure Stack HCI and so on and so on? So there are workarounds existing, there are third-party tools existing. But now we have the Azure Migrate in preview at the moment for Hyper-V environments. I think there's a private preview for VMware, and it will be soon public preview for everyone. So things are coming, and that's super important that we will have it.
Yeah, so it's great because the Azure Migrate is the tool we have today to migrate workloads to Azure. And so it's a consequent next step to have it also to migrate workloads to Azure Stack HCI. And I'm really looking forward to have this because, as you mentioned, this is very often asked, and it's still an offline migration with Azure Migrate, but Azure Migrate also supports a workload optimization inside the migration process. So it can look at the resource usage on the source hosts and give recommendations for the new configuration of the machines. Yeah.
Yeah, customers and partners very often raise the question if the data will go through Azure if you use Azure Migrate, but my understanding is it's not routed through Azure, correct?
Yeah, the data, this is also, it's not clear written in the post, but there's a note in the post that the data stays on premises. Technically, it means that the content of the source virtual machine moves to the target machine without any transition via Azure, but we have some meta information. So in Azure, we will have the information: how many virtual machines are there, what is the configuration, the size, the CPU cores, the memory. This is stored in something like a database in Azure, a data store, and the data itself, so content of my file server, content of my domain controller, is migrated locally via direct connection. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the sneak preview part. Then there has been a note about the preferred vendors. So there are a lot of vendors existing that offer certified hardware. So we have this validated nodes, we have the integrated nodes, and now we have the premier solutions that are at the moment only existing from Dell. And you see some brands here: Dell Technologies, Hewlett Packard Enterprise, Lenovo, and Data On. And of course, there are others like Fujitsu in the European market, very relevant. There are some local partners. So there's a catalog where you can find all the solution. This catalog helps you to choose the solution that fits to your needs. But it's super important to understand that you need certified hardware for your Azure Stack HCI environment. Of course, it's running on non-certified hardware as well, and you can use it in virtualized environments. I know people who installed it on PCs or on NUCs and things like that, but it's not supported, and you may run into issues when the next version of Azure Stack will come. Then it's not tested on the hardware you are using. If you use certified hardware, it's tested from Microsoft together with the OEM, and you can be secure that everything is up and running. And yeah, that's one of the benefits. So we recommend you to get in contact with your hardware vendor, talk about 23H2. Is everything fine so far? And then you can upgrade.
Yes.
So, and now I guess this is the most important part of the announcement, because for around about 2 years, really 2 years, we are waiting for that. So it has been announced that Azure Virtual Desktop will come on premises to Azure Stack HCI. So Azure Virtual Desktop is a very unique solution. You know that you can do virtual desktop infrastructures where you virtualize your Windows in your on-premises environment. but you need a virtual machine for every single user because Windows does not have multi-usage rights. And there's one exception, and that is Azure Virtual Desktop. With Azure Virtual Desktop, you can access with a lot of employees at the same time to the same Windows. So very similar to what you know experience with Windows Server in an RDS environment. One solution, a lot of people using it. And this Azure Virtual Desktop was only available in Azure. That's why we call it Azure Virtual Desktop. And now, since yesterday, it's available on premises on Azure Stack HCI as well. I've seen a lot of comments that this is absolutely great announcement and it's the end of Citrix and so on. So this is absolutely not true because, and Manfred and I explained this in a lot of sessions before, that Citrix is on top of the solution Microsoft is offering. So they have their own management portal and so on. And of course, you can use Citrix for Azure Virtual Desktop, and you can use Citrix for Azure Virtual Desktop on Azure Stack HCI as well. So if it does make sense for you, if you need it, this is something you have to decide by yourself. But this is only an alternative option to use a virtual desktop environment, and you can use it with or without Citrix. But you tested Azure Virtual Desktop already, Manfred. So what is your experience?
Yeah, we discussed about this already several times. For me, it was not clear why we had to wait so long for it, because it worked as expected already in the first preview I have seen. But what was new already in 23 H2, so in November last year, that we had a new deployment wizard via the portal, and this really works very, very good. So we used the Azure portal to deploy the complete Azure Virtual Desktop configuration, including the host pool we need, including the infrastructure, and for sure including the virtual machines. So this works very well. It's part of the Azure-based VM management, and the scenarios are absolutely flexible. As you mentioned, you can deploy Azure Virtual Desktop in a traditional RDS scenario where you use Windows Server as targets. You can build a virtual desktop infrastructure scenario. You can extend it with third party or use the integrated tools. And we can use this exclusive multi-session Windows 11, and Windows 10 is still available, so you can decide if you use Windows 10 or Windows 11. But this multi-session thing is unique, and for sure the advantage of the multi-session configuration is to reduce costs, because we don't need a complete VM configuration for each user, because, for example, 10 users share a single virtual machine. And this is the interesting part here, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm doing the Azure Stack HCI business for around about 3 years now, and Azure Virtual Desktop was one of the most relevant deal drivers. So the pipeline for Azure Virtual Desktop is really huge. And as you explained, you could test it, it's running. So why does it take so long? So I think maybe it's a political decision. Will we bring Azure Virtual Desktop on premises or not? And finally, it has been made because there's a lot of requests in the market. And if our customers want to have it hybrid or on premises only, because it's not only about bringing it on premises. There are a lot of people who use Azure Virtual Desktop in Azure at the moment, but they have some limitations and they want to have it hybrid. And now this is possible, and it's good news. And in the blog post of Cosmos Darwin, there's a link to another post that is focusing on the availability of Azure Stack HCI and Azure Virtual Desktop. And here you can see a short explanation what Azure Stack HCI and Azure Virtual Desktop is in combination. There's a quote from a customer who's using it, and so on. And there is a link to a video. Here it is.
Yep.
that has been posted yesterday as well. So it's a brand new video from the Microsoft mechanics, how to use Azure Virtual Desktop on premises. So we invite you to take a look at this very nice video. I posted it on the Azure Stack HCI Tech Talk LinkedIn channel an hour ago. So yeah, maybe it makes sense to have a look at this video, and maybe in the next Azure Stack HCI, we will spend a little bit more time in the Azure Virtual Desktop part and have a look how to deploy, how it works, and so on, where the limitations are at the moment. Yeah, I think that could be very interesting. And the most interesting thing is that there has been no comment about the fee, but now you can see here that there is a fee in the post. They put it here. So initially there was nothing like that. And they refer to the Azure Virtual Desktop pricing website. And the Azure Virtual Desktop pricing website, you can find Azure Virtual Desktop and Azure Virtual Desktop on Azure Stack HCI. And if you choose HCI and you scroll down, you can see it's $0 per virtual core per hours. And this was something we announced yesterday in our private LinkedIn post and say, yeah, that's great. $0 sounds really good, but this is not the final pricing. This is a mistake. This website has not been updated yet. So please do not look at this site. In the comments of this post, you can see that a lot of people noted that there's a $0, and if this is really true, and then the author of this post said, no, it's not. It's 1 cent per virtual core per hour. And they updated the blog post itself. So now the final pricing is available. And what do you think about the pricing, Manfred?
So I don't like the confusion about it that started yesterday, but I think this $0.01 per vCore per hour is a fair price for the technology, because what is the alternative? It could be a third-party solution where you have license costs, you need hardware and so on. And in the Microsoft on-premises technologies, it would be Windows Server with remote desktop services. And I think there are still many scenarios where Windows Server with remote desktop services is a perfect solution, and we can run it virtualized also on Azure Stack HCI. But there will be many scenarios where Azure Virtual Desktop on Azure Stack HCI is the better solution. And in an RDS scenario, you also need the infrastructure. You have the RDS host, you have the gateway, you have the web access server, you have the session hosts, you have the connection broker. These are all roles on virtual or physical machines, and for sure they have to be configured. You have to pay for them. Depending on your license scenario, you have the license costs for them. And here in Azure Virtual Desktop, the whole infrastructure you need to be able to provide these remote sessions is provided via Azure. And for sure, this has to be paid somehow. We have the gateway in Azure, we have the connection broker in Azure, we have the whole management in Azure. And from my point of view, this pricing we can read here in this article you shared is absolutely fair for what we get for it. The important thing is it's per vCPU, so you can optimize this vCPUs in playing around with hyper-threading or no hyper-threading. You can play around with this to optimize it to have maybe CPUs with an higher per CPU core performance, because this is what you can configure for the virtual machine. So with this announcement, now we can plan optimized hosts for Azure Virtual Desktop on Azure Stack HCI, because it does not look at the storage or the threads. It only looks at the V cores of the virtual machines that are used as Azure Virtual Desktop session hosts. Yeah.
Yeah, this is not the only cost coming with Azure Virtual Desktop.
This is true, yeah.
So on the website. I make it a little bit bigger. You can see that there are a lot of components, and one of those is the access to the virtual machine, and this access has to be licensed for the user. So if someone is using Azure Virtual Desktop, they need the access license, and for example, it's Microsoft 365 E3 or E5. Here you have the access right included, or you can use the universities, the student versions. These are eligible as well, or Microsoft 365 Business Premium. With Business Premium, there are 2 asterisks. Do you know what the asterisks mean?
Yeah, 1 second, Sven, because I want to add something here. These costs here are not specific for Azure Virtual Desktop on Azure Stack HCI. So these costs here are in this first part, the bring your own license, user access rights. We have this when we use Hyper-V, we have this when we use Azure Virtual Desktop in Azure, we have this if we use a virtual desktop solution from VMware or from Citrix or every other vendor. And so the part where we have maybe to compare if it's also a decision based on the price, not only on the technology, is this last part, the Azure Virtual Desktop fee. So we have to look at the Azure Virtual Desktop fee for Azure's Virtual Desktop on Azure Stack HCI compared to the other solutions we are looking at. And with the Microsoft 365 Business Premium, we don't know what the intention of Microsoft is because of these 2 asterisks here, because they are missing on the bottom. I didn't find them here on the page, but I assume that here the information is that Microsoft 365 Business Premium is only scalable up to 300 users, because Azure Virtual Desktop is not limited. The other technologies we have in the list are not limited, and Microsoft 365 Business Premium is limited to maximum 300 users. This is what I assume what will be added here at the bottom for this note here.
Yeah, that's a very important comment, that these costs apply to all the different versions of virtual desktop infrastructure. If you use Windows 10 or 11 in a virtual environment, you need the access license. And the access license is per user if you use Microsoft 365, or it can be per device if you're using Windows 10, 11 Enterprise or education plans, or you can have the virtual desktop access license per user. This is something you need to have. But there's also an alternative to use Windows Server in an Azure Virtual Desktop environment. And if you do this, you need the Windows Server Remote Desktop Services CAL. So this is something you have to use in a classic RDS environment. And if you want to use it in an Azure Virtual Desktop environment, no matter if it's running on Azure or on Azure Stack HCI, RDS CAL is what you need to access. And then you have the Azure infrastructure or the Azure Stack HCI infrastructure. And on Azure Stack HCI, of course, you have to pay the $10 per physical core per month for Azure Stack HCI. This is an Azure consumption. So if you have some rebates for Azure consumption, maybe because you have an enterprise agreement and you get some rebates for your consumption, then these rebates apply for Azure Stack HCI as well, because this is an Azure service. An alternative is to use the Azure Hybrid Benefits. If you have Windows Server Data Center plus software assurance, then there are a lot of Azure Hybrid Benefits. There's an Azure Stack HCI show session where we talked exactly about the licensing. So maybe you want to have a look at this as well. And then you can switch your $10 per physical core per month to $0. Because on Azure Stack HCI, you have to license the guest operating system on top of the host operating system. And if you're using Windows Server in your guest and you have a lot of Windows Server, then you have to license Windows Server Data Center. And if you put software assurance on top of that, then you get Azure Stack HCI for free, and a lot of additional benefits are coming with this Azure Hybrid Benefit combination. And yes, and then you have the service fee, and this is 1 cent per virtual core per hour, not the $0 as mentioned on the website at the moment. Yeah, that's everything about licensing of Azure Stack HCI with Azure Virtual Desktop. Anything to add from your side, Manfred?
Yeah, maybe to add something about the pricing, because maybe you should also tell this your customers you're working with, because if you don't read the blog, and I think not every customer reads every blog for Microsoft, but when you go to the Microsoft website and you say, okay, today I'm interested in Azure Virtual Desktop and Azure Stack HCI, what are the costs for it? Then you have this $0. So there is no official page today besides the blog, and the blog is a blog. This is the official statement from Microsoft is blogs are not official product terms. This is only a blog, and this is important. We know, because this makes sense, and this is what we heard before internally. It makes sense that we have this 1 cent per vCPU per core per vCPU per hour, but we cannot read it on the official page today. So please be sure to communicate it correctly. The billing starts on 1st of April, and what is important to add, there will not be a 60-day trial period like we have it for Azure Stack HCI and for the Windows Server subscription. I asked this the product group when I have seen that there are misinformation about the pricing, and I got the feedback for additional Azure services like Defender or Azure Virtual Desktop or additional ARC-enabled services. There will be not a 60-day trial period like we have it for the host fee and the server subscription.
Ah, that's important news, because they told me that there will be a 60-day like with Azure Stack HCI, but this is not true, correct?
Now the question is, who tells the truth? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have a mail from Cosmos Darwin, who says that there is no 60-day trial period.
Okay.
And this
So
was
I will ask again and
about
try to
the
get
price
some
confusion.
more clarity. So at the moment, there is a trial period because we start billing on April 1st, but this may be a kind of kickstart benefit. But after that, there's no trial following your information. Okay, I will ask my corporate contacts about that, and in the next.
So maybe we can clarify this.
Yeah, absolutely, because
that's
that's super important. But I don't think it's business critical, because it's only helpful if you want to test it. That's something a lot of people ask me: is there any test environment and so on? And my answer usually is you can use the preview. That's for free always. Or you can use Azure Stack HCI, and now maybe Azure Virtual Desktop. And for the first 60 days, it's for free. Then it's simple to do a kind of test without any official test version. But we will, have a follow-up about that point. But on this website, Manfred, you are not able to purchase Azure Virtual Desktop. Have you checked if in the official Azure portal, when you place the order, or if you download the solution or deploy it, if there is any communication about the pricing?
When I checked it yesterday, when this confusion started, there was no price information there, like in the trial period. So maybe it will be added there, but in, let's say, besides the block, and we are conform here that the block tells what the price will be in the future, and this will be the price that will be relevant for the customers. Besides this block, there's actually no source I know where the price is shown to the customer. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
What we should add is that also AKS was announced as an GA technology on Azure Stack HCI. This is also part of the official announcement. And this AKS GA is important, I think so, because Azure Kubernetes Services is the technology of the future. It's the technology we are talking about that maybe in the future will be replace several virtual machines we have, or most of the virtual machines we have. But in the past, it was not so easy to deploy it, and in several scenarios it was not supported, and this is now also general available on Azure Stack HCI 23H2. The important note is here we have in the blog that Azure Virtual Desktop and this implementation of Azure Kubernetes Services is only supported on Azure Stack HCI 23H2. So if you are still on 2020 H2, you don't have the general availability for Azure Virtual Desktop and for this AKS implementation we can see here. So the requirement is to have the latest Azure Stack HCI OS on the hosts. Yeah.
Perfect. So I think we are more or less at the end of this session. There are no questions at the moment. So let's look forward to our next session. It will be on February 16th. So in 2 weeks. So maybe we will spend some time talking about Azure Virtual Desktop. Maybe we do some calculation or things like that. So hopefully you come back in 2 weeks. And there's another thing I got a lot of question about. Do we have any materials, new presentation decks and so on? At the moment, I do not, but I expect to get them every moment. And we will have some Unpack the Deck sessions. So the idea of the Unpack the Deck session is that we will go through the deck together with you live, and you have the option to raise some questions, and then we go through the deck and we explain what is meant by every single slide, so it's much easier for you to present the deck to your partners, to your customers. And if you have some questions, because it's a live session, you can raise them. So expect to have this kind of Unpack the Deck session somehow next week. We will announce it early enough when it will come on our Azure Stack HCI Tech Talk. LinkedIn is the portal where you will find all the news. On the Azure Stack HCI Tech Talk on YouTube, you can find the streaming live and on demand. I see that there's a comment. Can I ask a question based on an earlier show? Of course you can. So please raise the question and we try to answer them. And then we have some more information for our German guests, but this time we stay in English as there are some maybe some questions. But for our German friends, we have the hybrid show. The hybrid show is between Eric Berg and Manfred Helber. It's at the same day as the Azure Stack HCI show, but the Azure Stack HCI show is at noon, and the hybrid show is at 10 in the morning. So if you are interested in watching Eric and Manfred talking about hybrid solutions, you can watch the session on Manfred Helber's YouTube channel. So go to YouTube, look for Manfred Helber, and here you can find the hybrid show live and on demand. So here's the question. It was a demo about reducing vCores and RAM on a running VM via portal. Did it restart? It wasn't clear. Okay. So it was about demo last time.
Yeah. It does not change the capabilities of Hyper-V. And in Hyper-V, we have the situation that changing the virtual cores results in a restart of the virtual machine. So when I changed the virtual course, the virtual machine was restarted. But for example, I added a virtual hard disk also. This didn't result in a restart. So it depends on your configuration action, and it depends on the capabilities of Hyper-V. Yeah.
I watched the hybrid show, and in the hybrid show, Manfred, you announced that there will be a masterclass for Azure Stack HCI
Yes.
and for Hyper-V. And this masterclass is starting in February and will continue until the end of this calendar year. So it's a regular session where you bring additional demos, Q&A sessions, and everything for all those people who signed into this masterclass contract. So my question would be, will it be available for our international guests in English as well, or do you plan to do that only for German folks?
There will also be an English language version. It will be on the same day as the German language masterclass is, but it will be in the evening. So it's from 5 p.m. till 6:30 p.m. So to optimize the time frame for the international customers. The idea to separate is that our German audience prefers the German language, and I assume this is the reason why we don't have so many questions here in the show. So if you are listening to the Azure Stack HCI in German language and you prefer the German language for your questions, you can feel free to send in your questions in German language and we can translate them here. And this is the reason why I will do both. The German language version is already booked. It's already online. So, and I already have reservations for it. So these dates are safe. And for the English language version, maybe it will start a month later, as soon as I have registrations for it. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So we will communicate the availability of this masterclass in the Azure Stack HCI Tech Talk LinkedIn channel. So please follow the channel and you will not miss anything. I'm thinking about Azure Stack HCI Tech Talk website at the moment. So because I want to have a website where you find recommended videos, where you can download decks, for example, and so on. So I think in the time frame of February, I will finalize this website, and this can be a kind of hub where you get everything combined. So stay tuned, follow us on LinkedIn, and you will not miss anything. Not missing anything is true as well for the on-prem friends. So on-prem, a lot of Windows Server topics are part of the on-prem show. Carsten Rachfall is an MVP as well. This session is in German language. So on 22nd of February, today, at 4:30 p.m. There's a show with Carsten, and of course they are talking about the announcements of yesterday. So you already got them. If you want to have those updates in German language again, so we invite you to come here. And this session is on Manfred Helber's YouTube channel as well. It's not on the Azure Stack HCI Tech Talk. Yeah, and if you want to be sure that you are not missing anything about the Windows Business Solution Club, about the offerings from Manfred Helber and so on, you can add the Windows Business Solution Club calendar into your calendar. This is very relevant for the German-speaking ones, but over the time we will include some English sessions as well. So you can go on manfredhelber.de/calendar, and then you got an explanation how it works to integrate your calendar into your own. It's all in German at the moment, so for the German friends. So we invite you to do that. For the international ones, I think there will be a solution on my new website soon. So stay tuned and have a very good weekend. I say goodbye, and as always, the last words are Manfred's.
Yeah, maybe you join us at 4:30 p.m. in German language in the on-prem show on my YouTube channel. And I also wish you a nice weekend and see you next time in the Azure Stack HCI show. Bye.